Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Week 4 of the NFL is here. Crazy to think we're already a month into the NFL season, but we keep moving along here this week, and I'm going to be taking a first look at the DraftKings main slate. Like I always do with these videos here, I'll go position by position, talking about the plays that are sticking out to me here early on Monday, and then to wrap up the video, we'll put together a first look cash lineup and a first look tournament lineup. With that being said, let's dive into this week 4 main slate. And we're going to kick things off here at the quarterback position. Now, the first thing that really stuck out to me here is we got 6 quarterbacks who are listed at 7K or above. My favorite are the top 3. We got Josh Allen playing Miami at home, Jalen Hurts playing Washington at home, we got Justin Herbert playing Las Vegas at home. All 3 of those matchups look really good for those quarterbacks. I think they're cash game viable, but I prefer Jalen Hurts of the 3 early on in the week. That Washington defense just hasn't looked very good here over the past 2 weeks. Gave up 30-plus points to the Broncos in week 2, 37 points to the Buffalo Bills last week. I'm not able to watch the game here on Monday night because I am recording, but assuming that Jalen Hurts looks fine here against the Buccaneers, got a healthy wide receiver core, that looks like a really good matchup for them at home. Now, I don't love the matchup here for Lamar going on the road against Cleveland. That defense for the Browns has been very good to start the season. I don't love the matchup for Kirk Cousins either. That secondary is pretty legit for Carolina, but even more so, I think Minnesota's just going to want to slow this game down overall after going 0-3, throwing the ball a bunch in the first 3 weeks. Probably going to want to run the ball a little bit more and just slow the game down overall. Now, Tua here. I don't love the matchup on the road against Buffalo, but man, this Miami team is just balling out to start the season, so I think we'll probably be able to attack that game in general because it's going to have some shootout potential, but Tua's probably more of a tournament play for me. So my favorite cash game plays here, Josh Allen playing Miami at home, $8,200, need about 24.6 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 3x value, and then I'm going to lean towards Jalen Hurts here at $8,000, need 24 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 3x value. Again, just really like that matchup against Washington. So those are the top quarterbacks here on the main slate. Obviously, those are usually easier to judge than the value quarterbacks. So let's get into some of that value here for the main slate. Maybe I don't call this a value play here, but Anthony Richardson at $6,700. I do like him at home here against this Rams defense. Now, I know the Rams team in general has probably played better than any of us would have expected throughout the first 2 weeks. Again, I'm not able to watch them here on Monday night as I record this, but Anthony Richardson's essentially played 5 quarters of football, and he's put up 22 DraftKings points in his first game and essentially 18 DraftKings points in 1 quarter against the Houston Texans. So we really don't have a lot to go off here, a very small sample size, but in that small sample size, I've seen enough here, especially with that rushing upside, to consider him in cash. Again, we're going to have to wait and see if he even clears concussion protocol, but at $6,700 here, need roughly 19-20 DraftKings points from him. He's clearly capable of getting us there. Now, outside of Anthony Richardson, I didn't really love the 6K range. Joe Burrow is super interesting. Again, I'm not able to watch him play here on Monday night. I will go back and watch the highlights for sure, but he hasn't looked like Joe Burrow that we're accustomed to watching. But if he is healthy here and he plays well on Monday night, that matchup is beautiful against the Tennessee Titans. Definitely a tournament consideration. And then we're going to get into that 5K range here, and I think there's some nice value in this range. I do have 5 different guys listed here, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, but they're all in the 5K range. First, Brock Purdy playing at home against Arizona. Really good matchup there. Russ playing on the road against Chicago. Hey, look, I know the Broncos got slaughtered on Sunday, but Russ didn't play horrible. If we look at his game log here, he's put up 15, 30, and 18 DraftKings points. It's basically what we need here at that price for 3x value. Plus, Chicago arguably has a worse defense than the Denver Broncos. You flip a coin, they're both awful. We also got Matthew Stafford in that game against Indianapolis. Yeah, probably don't want to go there in cash just because he doesn't have any of that rushing upside, but a tournament consideration for sure. Maybe that's a little game that we could stack up even. CJ Stroud has played awesome as a rookie here throughout his first 3 games. Again, I don't know if I'll be able to go there in cash against a Pittsburgh defense, but look at of those last 2 game logs, 25 and 20 DraftKings points. Hard to ignore that. And then Andy Dalton here. If Bryce Young does not play this week, that Minnesota defense is not very good. $5,100, only need 15.3 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 3x value. Actually played pretty well against Seattle. Maybe a little stack there with him and Adam Thielen, revenge game. At $5,100, that is really cheap, and I will keep my eye on him. Now, moving over here to the running back position, I'm curious as to what you guys think about the slate here this week. I didn't love the running backs here initially. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is going to be in play probably more weeks than not, especially against that Arizona defense. I'm probably just going to lock him in my cash lineup right away. We'll do that later on when we build that first lineup. Upper 8K range here. Eckler, if he plays, obviously that looks nice, but I'd prefer CMC. Pollard, don't love it against New England. Jacobs hasn't looked fantastic throughout the first few weeks. Henry, more of a tournament play. If Joe Burrow actually looks good here tonight, that might be a game that we could target in stacking. Miami, again, that offense has been awesome, but the next guy I really want to focus on here is James Cook, and I highlighted him last week in the first look. My only concern with him right now is he's not getting any work at the goal line. It's been Latavius Murray and Damian Harris. You can see the volumes going his way outside of that, but man, if this guy could just punch in a touchdown or two and make him a lot more appealing. So it is a tournament play for me. I can't trust him in cash just because he's not getting that goal line work. But one guy who's getting all the work for his team, in fact, 2 guys here, Kyren Williams of the Los Angeles Rams, $6,000, has played really well for them. Love his involvement in the passing game, and I don't mind that matchup against Indy. $6,000 looks really nice too. 18 DraftKings points for him. We get 3x value. And on the other side of that game, I also like Zach Moss. He's looked really good here throughout the first 2 weeks. I know there's a whole Jonathan Taylor drama, and he could be back after week 4. But in the meantime, I think we can ride out Zach Moss here, who's looked really good in his first 2 games. Now, there's a guy right below these two at $5,900 in Alexander Mattison. Now, I obviously have no idea what Cam Akers' role is going to be here in week 4. I assume he at least suits up this week. He didn't do that in week 3, but Madison wasn't horrible against the Los Angeles Chargers. In fact, I watched that entire game, and he had a couple of sketchy fumble situations that didn't go to the Chargers, but outside of that, the volume was going his way. 20 rushing attempts, 7 targets. Like I said, Minnesota should probably want to slow this game down here against Carolina. That Carolina defense is way better in the secondary than their front 4. So yeah, $5,800. I'm going to keep that on my radar as well, but obviously need to see what Cam Akers' role is for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, 2 other plays here in the 5K range that caught my attention were DeAndre Swift. Again, I'm not able to watch him play here tonight, but I'm already looking at the snap counts, and he's clearly dominating the snap counts for running backs for the Eagles. Looks like he's going to be the RB1 in this offense going forward. But the other guy that stuck out to me here is actually in the 4K range, Roschon Johnson. I'll actually build a tournament lineup targeting this game with a stack with Russ and his 2 wide receivers later on. I did that earlier, and it actually makes for some nice plays outside of that game, but Roschon Johnson's role is growing in this offense. I know the Bears aren't all that exciting, but against Denver, who hasn't been able to stop anybody through 3 weeks, again, this could be a tournament play here at $4,900. You can see only 8 rushing attempts last week, but he's been a clearly better runner than Khalil Herbert, and I like his involvement in the passing game too. So again, clearly a tournament play, and I'll build a lineup kind of targeting that game later on, but overall, I think that's a guy that's going to take over as the number 1 running back in Chicago sooner than later. Now, folks, before we dive into the wide receivers here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. We're trying to get SlyDawg Sports to 4,000 subs. Help us out. The more you guys help us out, the more content we can push out here on SlyDawg Sports. And don't forget, I'm running that Discord channel as well. If you want to join that, there's a link to do so in the description below. Plus, I also run that DraftKings YouTube League. Both that and the Discord are completely free to join. Just go down to the description of this video, click on those links, and you'll be entered in. Now, moving on to the wide receivers here. This is a position that I quite like here early on in the week. Looks great for the week 4 main slate. I'm going to break this into 5 individual plays to begin with. These are going to be more cash game targets, and then I'm going to get to 4 matchups that I think we'll be able to target in terms of tournaments, and maybe could sprinkle them in cash as well. Right at the top here, we do got Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, but I actually like Davante Adams and Keenan Allen as kind of the tier 1 plays here for cash this week. Obviously, you get the price savings there, about $1,000 off of Jefferson and Hill, but I like the matchups better as well. Adams saw 20 targets last night against Pittsburgh. 20, 45 DraftKings points. I know the volume's not going to be that great week in and week out, but you can see here, he's basically got a floor of 8 targets. Now, I don't love that Garoppolo might not play here in week 4, something to keep an eye on, but assuming he does play, I do like that matchup. And then let's run it back there with Keenan Allen, another guy who got 20 targets last week. You can see here he's got basically 40 targets through the first 3 weeks. Hard to ignore that volume, whether you're playing cash or GPP. Now, speaking of volume, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm not watching the Monday night games right now. I'll have to go back and watch those after, but Puka Nacua has seen nothing but volume throughout the first 2 weeks. I can't imagine that's going to change here tonight. No, I don't expect him to get 15 or 20 targets, but 8 to 10, that's definitely in the realm of possibilities. And again, I don't mind that matchup against the Indianapolis Colts. Maybe a game that we can target overall. And then I'm also going to go to Davante Adams' teammate here in Jacoby Myers. You do get the price savings at $5,500. Obviously, a still really good matchup against the Chargers. And you can see here, the volume has been pretty damn good for Jacoby as well. At $5,500 for a guy who's got double-digit targets in both games. Yeah, sign me up for that. And then 2 wide receivers here in the 4K range that I think are cash game viable. Again, then we'll get into those tournament matchups. First here is going to be Tank Dell. I don't want to say he's the number 1 wide receiver in this Houston offense quite yet, but I don't think he's far from it either. You can see the volume has definitely been there. The guy's he looks really good when he's on the field. 20 and 28 DraftKings points here in the last 2 weeks. Likely unsustainable numbers, but again, if the volume is going that way, if him and that connection with CJ Stroud is very real, I certainly don't mind it at $4,600, even though it is a little tougher matchup against Pittsburgh. I think they'll be able to create some pressure against that offensive line and CJ Stroud, but that's a nice price tag. And then Adam Thielen, I talked about it earlier. You got the revenge game. It really doesn't seem to matter who the quarterback is, whether it's Bryce Young or Andy Dalton. Volume is still going this guy's way, and I like it at that price of $4,500, especially considering the matchup against his old team. So both those guys, cash game viable in the 4K range. And then I got 4 matchups here that I think we can target as well. I kind of talked about it earlier with the Broncos, really good matchup against the Bears. We can go with Cortland Sutton there at $5,300, Jerry Jeudy at $66, or even Marvin Mims here. I know he hasn't been on the field a bunch, but this guy is clearly the deep threat for the Broncos offense. Him at $3,900 doesn't look all that bad. I also don't mind the Browns wide receivers going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Elijah Moore there at $4,700, and then you got Amari Cooper, who has creeped up into the 6K range, but he should have scored 2 touchdowns last week, and the chemistry between him and Deshaun is clearly growing. And then the last 2 matchups that I like targeting here, and I can even kind of highlight these at the top actually. Let's go ahead and do that. I like the Cincinnati Bengals, assuming that Burrow is healthy here tonight and looks good. That matchup against Tennessee is really nice. And then I also like those Eagles wide receivers going up against Washington. Think we can do a stack there with Jalen Hurts. So those are the wide receiver pairings that I like for tournaments this week. Again, it's Monday, but that's what stuck out to me. Now, I was going through the tight end section earlier and nothing really caught my eye. I'm curious as to who you guys like here early on in the week. Let me know in the comments below, because tight ends just look gross overall for week 4. I honestly probably won't mind paying up for George Kittle in my tournament lineups, but I don't want to spend $5,100 for him in my cash lineup. Maybe Dallas Goedert, maybe Tyler Higbee. Everett looks okay there against the Raiders. But honestly, I'm just hoping that Logan Thomas doesn't play for the Washington Commanders, because then we can put in Cole Turner here at $2,700, essentially punt the position. And this guy got 7 targets last week, albeit he just got 7.5 DraftKings points. But if he did that again here in week 4 at that price, I'd be okay with that. So yeah, I'm curious as to who you guys like here at the tight end position early on in the week. There's not a lot sticking out to me, to say the least. And then we got the defenses here to wrap up the positional plays before we build those first look lineups. I laughed out loud when I saw the 49ers were $4,700 against the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously not spending up for them in cash, but really interesting to see the pricing module there for DraftKings. Honestly, everyone, for my cash lineup this week, I'm probably just going to put in the Panthers here against the Minnesota Vikings playing at home. Minnesota's offensive line isn't great. Minnesota as a team just hasn't looked great overall. And believe you me, I think most of you know, I'm a Vikings fan, so I watch all of these games. $2,500, I'm just going to put them in, and now we're going to build that first look cash lineup. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there is some nice value at the quarterback position this week, but I'm more intrigued with those plays for my tournament lineups. I'm going to take a little safer route here with my cash lineup and go with Jalen Hurts at $8,000. Yeah, expensive for a quarterback, but 24 DraftKings points to me 3x value. He can definitely do that against Washington. Also going to lock in CMC against Arizona. And let's go with one of these 6K running backs here. I'm going to go with Williams. Just love the volume he's gotten from the Rams. Now, going to have to spend down a little bit here at the wide receiver position here initially, but we got both Tank Dell and Adam Thielenson really nice, getting a lot of volume for guys who are in the 4K range. Like I said, I think they're both cash viable. And I'm also going to put in, let's go with the tight end position here at this time, and I'm going to lock in Turner, assuming that Logan Thomas does not play here this week. So that leaves us with two more positions. Keenan Allen, I love that matchup there. Let's pay up for one of these wide receivers, $7,900. Guy's been an absolute beast. And we got $4,600 left over. So, wide receiver does look nice there. What we're going to have to do, actually, is let's go ahead and pivot off of Dell. And I didn't talk about the 3K range here earlier, but Downs has got some nice volume as well for a guy in the 3K range, so I'm going to put him at $3,500, and that gives us $5,700 left over, which is Jacoby Myers, I believe, is $5,500 if I'm not mistaken. Where are you, Jacoby? There he is, $5,500. So $200 left over. We could probably pivot somewhere, but for a first initial look, these players on this roster are getting a lot of volume, so I hope that's the case here for week 4 as well. But again, that's why it's called the first initial look. And then let's get creative here with this tournament lineup. It's probably not going to be a fan favorite, but I mentioned if we stack this game up here between the Broncos and Bears, we get a lot of money left over throughout the rest of our lineup. Two really bad defenses, you never know. Could be like a 30-27 game. That'd give us what we need. So let's put in Russ here. He was $5,800, and I'm going to put him with Sutton, and I'm actually going to go to Marvin Mims, because that's going to give us some decent price savings. Got to go to the wide receivers here, Griff. All right, Sutton, and then Mims was $3,900. So that leaves us with about $6,000 per player. Now let's run it back there with Roschon Johnson. Again, I know this doesn't look beautiful to start, but look everyone, we got $6,000 per player to fill out the rest of our lineup. We can do some pretty cool things here. So I want to do a little mini stack in this game between the Bengals and Titans, assuming that Joe Burrow does look good here on Monday night. So let's put in King Henry there. And then we could go with Jamar Chase, but I already built this lineup earlier, and I ended up pivoting to Higgins, because then I can actually put in both George Kittle and Devontae Adams. That leaves us with $3,200 left over for a defense. So, I mean, pick and choose your poison there at that point. I probably don't want to put in the Chargers if I'm playing Adams, but we got some room. We got some wiggle room there, to say the least. Like I said, I know that game between the Broncos and Bears probably isn't sexy, but what you can do with the rest of your lineup looks pretty damn good. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would truly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great week here, folks. In the meantime, I'm out of here.